Madam State Secretary, Excellencies, dear friends, good afternoon, hyvää iltapäivää, and welcome to this Arctic Frontiers Abroad event in Oulu. No doubt that today marks a special day for me personally, when my two worlds meet. Bringing Arctic Frontiers and a part of northern Norway to Oulu, to the town where I was born and raised. Kallet has been a part of my vocabulary ever since I was 14, and it made its entrance through sports. As a young and ambitious athlete, matching was hard to find in northern Finland, so it was natural to look across the borders to northern parts of Sweden and Norway, to the crossroads of international and regional. Fast forward 20 plus years, and the world outside has turned tumultuous. While many seek consolation and security by turning inwards, we turn to shared history, values, and culture. We, neighbors across 3 different countries, are here today, united by a wish for a renewed, closer cross-border collaboration at the crossroads of international and regional. Despite cultural similarities and long-standing ties, we still experience hindrances in our willingness to collaborate. We are here today because we share an understanding of the need to enhance and simplify our collaboration. This collaboration, which takes place on numerous levels, personal, cultural, sports, political, as well as businesses. Whether facing the needs for rapidly accelerated green transition, solving issues related to security of supply, or safeguarding our communities, we stand stronger when we work together. This also goes for our businesses, which in many ways have many complementary competencies across the borders. By joining our forces, we stand stronger both as providers of solutions, but also into international markets. When the world around us changes, we don't turn inwards, we turn to those closest to us, to the crossroads of international and regional. We can call northern Norway our home. We can have our roots deeply planted in the northern Finnish landscape, and we can have close relations to our neighbors in Sweden. Sharing a sense of community and commonality across the entire region. I do. So with these words, it is my immense pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker, which is the mayor of our host city here in Oulu, Ari Alatosova. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Well, dear Secretary of State, Teresian, dear Director General Martikainen, all the builders of the Northern success, ladies and gentlemen, you are warmly welcome to Oulu. This event, Arctic Frontiers Abroad, is itself a good example of Nordic collaboration. I would like to warmly thank the Arctic Frontiers administration, as well as the Swedish and Norwegian embassies in Helsinki and the Prime Minister's office for their excellent cooperation in making this event possible. Oulu is growing and becoming more international. Last year, we welcomed nearly 3,000 new residents, and more than half of them were international migrants coming here to work or study. The population of Oulu is at the moment a little bit over 215,000. The city of Oulu will invest nearly 650 million euros over the next 3 years for the new and existing services to our residents. There are also a strong private investments ongoing, Nokia, Stora Enso, and other private and also public construction projects will raise the total investment amount over 2 billion euros. Oulu is a significant hub of high-tech expertise. Actually, companies and R&D institutes invest the most in research and development in Finland, actually 1.5 times more than in capital area. Oulu has 35,000 students and provides a highly educated workforce to meet the needs of the entire north. Actually, the city itself is a good example that innovation and growth result from the high level of education. More than 1/3 of the residents have a university degree. As we all know, the global competition for investments is hard. But at the same time, we know that North has investment opportunities up to 200 billion euros. And also we know that this all needs actions for us. Here in Finland, the Northern Agenda is part of the Prime Minister's government program. The aim of the agenda is to boost regional growth, speed up investments, and make it easier to find workers. It reflects Nordic, European Union and NATO cooperation in a new geopolitical era. The Swedish government published the Northern Strategy in the summer, and the Norwegian government is implementing the Arctic 2030 program in the north. So the potential of the north can be, how I'd say, unlocked through the close and coordinated cross-border cooperation. Cooperation must be carried out locally, regionally, between governments and also internationally. For this, within the region, we already have several good platforms to start with, such as Botnian Arc and Arctic Mayors Forum, to which Oulu is also committed. Security, supply of security, and industrial renewal of the North are national discussion topics in all Nordic countries. Transport, logistics, energy, and skilled workforce are on the advocacy agents for all of us. The North can offer solutions to whole Scandinavia and also the European Union. Therefore, I propose that Finland, Sweden, and Norway jointly develop an industrial policy program for the northern regions. The program must consider our regional strengths and provide tools to solve our key development challenges. The program must be prepared and implemented in close partnership with and in multi-level governance with states, regional and local authorities. So, we all know that North can offer growth, vitality and well-being. So the question for you all and all the discussions here is that are we ready to boost and speed up our cross-border cooperation to increase the common good? With these words, I want to welcome you all to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was an excellent opening, and also I hear a call to action, which I'm sure we will return back to during the discussions. Now, as we've all heard, we are facing a new geopolitical and security context. But how do we respond to this on a policy level? That's the focus of the coming discussions. It is my immense pleasure to introduce to you a person who not only knows a lot about the Arctic, but also has left a part of her heart to the northern parts of Norway throughout the years that she lived and worked in Tromsø. Please join me in welcoming the State Secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Maria Varterestian.
Thank you so much, dear Anu. And wow, I really have to say it's truly wonderful to be back in Oulu. And let me start by saying that, Anu, your opening remarks, it really, I felt it in my heart because for many years, as you have mentioned, I have lived in the Arctic. I've also worked at Arctic Frontiers. So it feels like a little piece of home right here. And this is my second time in Oulu. I was here in February. And I truly couldn't get here fast enough to return. So it feels really like coming home in several ways. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a true honor to be here. Now, ladies, gentlemen, excellencies, dear Harry, whom I had a fantastic meeting with earlier today, I want to start off by really turning a well-known phrase around, and we've probably heard it on several occasions and at several Arctic conferences. What happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic. Does it sound similar? I see some people nodding yes. Well, I want to challenge that because I believe rather the contrasting to be true, more true. What happens everywhere else in the world doesn't stay there. It ends up in the Arctic. Take greenhouse emissions, for example, whether they come from India, from China, from Germany, from France, they don't stay there. They go up to the atmosphere and they end up in the Arctic. And so is the case for geopolitics. Now, I also want to challenge the fact that whether the sense of or concept of Arctic exceptionalism has ever existed. It might have, it might not have. What we are facing today with the geopolitical backdrop, as Mr. Mayor and Anu Fredriksson has already addressed, the geopolitical backdrop is changing the politics around us, the environment around us, and it has to change also the building blocks which we base the future Northern Nordic and Arctic cooperation on. Now, friends, the privilege of working with foreign policy and being the Deputy Foreign Minister, a State Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is to look at the big picture. And not only look at it, not only analyze it, but to understand it and to put it to its main purpose, the main purpose of foreign policy, which is to make domestic policy possible. Now, if we look at the world around us and try and synthesize, are there some pieces, some trends that are more visible than others? We can actually summarize some of the biggest trends affecting the world around us on letter C. Climate change, already mentioned. Competition, conflict, more of all of those. Now, climate change happening or being put to effect much faster here in the Arctic than in the rest of the world. Global temperatures increasing up to 4 times faster. Now that is a challenge. You might think too bad for us. It destroys our infrastructure, it changes the environment around us, but it also presents an opportunity because we get a window into the future of the effect of a warmer climate, and it also gets us to think about solutions. How should a climate-adapted infrastructure look like? What do we need to do in order to cut emissions faster? Are there some technologies we can roll out here, scale up, and then export? That's the way I wish we should think more across our regions here in the north of Finland, of Sweden, and of course of Norway. Now, in terms of competition, all of us can probably nod to the fact that at some level, competition is good, it's healthy, it drives innovation. But if competition turns into protectionism, a competition between systems, a multilateral one versus, well, not a rules-based one, well, then we have an issue. When competition becomes great power rivalry, the way we see that the United States and China are very much engaged in right now, well, that's a challenge for us. It affects us in a great way, a great extent. It changes Europe, our continent. It changes the EU, who has become a geostrategic actor due to the fact that geopolitics have shifted. Now, the last C, and that is connected to the geopolitics shifting, conflict. There is not only more conflicts in the world today, they last longer and they have also come closer. There is a full-scale war, a brutal one, a legal one, waged by Russia on a sovereign neighboring country, Ukraine, happening right now. This has changed the Nordic security thinking. It has changed the high north, the Arctic, and European security policy landscape. Now, all of these factors are affecting the Arctic policy directly, and that is why we need to think more creatively of how we can ensure security, both for societies, both a civil, soft type of diplomacy security, and also, of course, the traditional, the more military sense. And the answer to that, of course, is NATO. Now, friends, all of these factors I'm telling you about, and which I'm very much looking forward to discussing later today, it is the proof of the fact that the architecture of the post-Cold War era is being put to perhaps its greatest test ever. Now, this makes me want to ask a question: is stable, prosperous, and sustainable Arctic possible? Well, we cannot say no. We have to say yes. And I truly believe it is possible. But in order to make it possible, it requires great effort into yet another letter C. And that is cooperation. We need much more of it. We need more cooperation on a regional level, definitely on the local level, but we need the national level engaged in supporting the cooperation happening across the regions. And this is the very topic of the Arctic Frontiers Abroad seminar, which is so important and so timely. Now, friends, for decades, the High North policy of Norway, it has been the most important strategic area of national interest. National interest. Because to us, Ari, and we talked about this earlier today, it's about national strategy. It's not regional politics. For us, if our High North succeeds, it means Norway will succeed. It means that the Northern Nordics will succeed. So it's about the big picture. And this year, the Norwegian government will present a white paper on civil preparedness and total defense, and preparing for a coherent, unified, and holistic approach to the to our northern areas, to our High North. And in this, it is of immense importance to connect the civil and the military dimensions, because those two need to go together. And there is yet another trend, megatrend, I want to mention for you, and that is the fact that we're living in an era of deglobalization. And what does that mean? Well, it means that regions matter more. It sounds simple, but it's true. And what we do in our regions, well, it matters even more. So right now there is actually a momentum. It's a trend that the Northern Nordic can become something new. It can become a force for development, a force for standing up for core values that unite us. And we can build resilient, strong, and prosperous societies if we manage to pull in the same direction, pull together. So we need to strengthen our bonds across all levels in order to make sure we succeed. In addition to thinking of cooperation between the capitals and municipalities and the regional levels, we need to think about cooperation across the region of Northern Finland, Northern Sweden, and Northern Norway. And the key to that, friends, is to have wise people like you challenge national level politicians such as me, and to what do we really need to put in our toolbox to making sure it happens? And I really like the challenge which was presented. And I have to say, I take it. I want to work with it. I want to see how far we can go in making it happen. And I also want to have a creative round of thinking and input from all of you into what tools do we need to succeed together. I believe that a running dialogue is a part of the success criteria, and this is a small anecdote, but I actually had a running dialogue myself earlier today. It was together with the Director of Arts and Culture here in the city of Oulu, Mr. Sami Ylisari, took me for a run around the city, 15 kilometers around the city, showing me the different parts of the city, telling me about culture, about sports, about history of Oulu, making me even more inspired and making me want to come back yet another time very, very soon. But friends, this is really what it's all about. Key task in the time ahead is not to have a discussion whether we should supplement the hard security cooperation. It's about how to making it happen and how to making it happen as fast as possible. Because we truly, truly need it. And here we need a big team effort. And what better team than the people gathered here. So thank you so much for your attention. I'm looking forward to the discussion. And not least, I'm looking forward to hearing my good colleague, Hari, come up to the stage for his keynote soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam State Secretary. Now it is my distinguished pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is the Director General of the Government Strategy Department. And that department is responsible for social policy foresight, planning, and the government's analysis, assessment, and research activities. Hari Martikainen, please, the stage is yours.
First of all, I have to say that this is an enormous great pleasure to be here today with you all. And there might be two reasons why I'm here. One of the reasons is that I'm responsible for the government program for Northern program. That is the one reason. And the second reason why I got so lucky to be here today is that as you may all know, there is annual budget negotiations in Helsinki going on, so I got an opportunity to back up some politicians from the capital. So I'm even bigger boots than I'm normally used to be. So this is even more great pleasure to be here. So best wishes to all of you from Helsinki, from State Secretary Risto Artjoki from the Prime Minister's office. He wishes for us great days here in Oulu. That's my first thoughts. But anyway, dear Maria, we did have a great discussions already in this morning. I'm very happy about those. I learned about a lot even today because unluckily like you, I don't have as long background in Arctic areas as you do, and most of you do have, but this is a great opportunity to also for me to learn more about Arctic and Northern issues, and I'm very, very keen and eager to make things happen here in North together with you. Dear Maria, dear Arctic friends, the Arctic region is and will always remain an important priority for Finland. The Arctic is also one of the many common nominators for an excellent cooperation that we have with our fellow Nordic countries, Sweden and Norway. In Prime Minister Petteri Orpo's government program, Nordic countries and Nordic cooperation are comprehensively featured in many different policy sectors. So, I thank Arctic Frontiers organization for joining us, voices of policy, business, science, and local Arctic communities. To discuss processing Arctic matters and Nordic collaboration over the coming 2 days here in Oulu, I look very much the upcoming discussions. As addressed by Maria, we are middle of the new geopolitical context with reflections seen so very clearly here in the north. Within the Russian war of aggression, Finland's membership in NATO, the energy crisis, and the emphasis on security supply, the geopolitical and economic situation has changed and the strategic importance of North has increased. Northern is our only land connection to the West. That we must remember. The populated, vibrant North and border regions ensure the safety of all of Finland. In order to respond to change in the geopolitical, economic and security policy operating environment earlier this year, the government appointed working groups and advisory committees for the programs of North and Eastern Finland. Northern and Eastern program tasks are to prepare proposals, regional programs. The aim of the programs is to promote full utilization of the region's potential from the perspective of economic growth, regional vitality, investment acceleration, utilization of clear energy opportunities, sustainable tourism, skills development and labor availability, as well as the region's physical and digital accessibility. In addition, the programs promote Finland's security of supply and self-reliance in the changed security political situation, and aim to strengthen security in the Nordic, EU and the NATO cooperation, so that the new geopolitics and our route to the West are taken into account. The government is very strongly committed to supporting and directing both programs with the available resources. Both programs call for interactive cooperation between business life, cities, regions, universities and research institutes. Close operation with the region is essential so that the region's own views and experiences on their development are taken into the consideration. Dear friends of the North, in the changed geopolitical situation, the vibrant northern region is even more important for Finland. Northern regions of Finland, Sweden and Norway are a globally significant region whose innovations and investments contribute to world-class northern and Arctic expertise. There are a number of entries in the government program that are closely related to Eastern and Northern programs and regional development. These include industrial policy strategy, RDI financing reforms, accelerating investments, development of energy transmission infrastructure, promotion of clean energy, Finland's tourism strategy, and closer Nordic and EU cooperation in the areas of security and industrial policy. Nordic cooperation is important for all of Finland, but it has a special value here in the north. The cooperation with the northern regions of Sweden and Norway is a necessary condition for the future success for all of us. Northern program works as a tool for deepened cooperation in the energy security, in cross-border logistic issues and availability of labor and expertise. Northern Finland's wind and hydropower and strong industrial expertise are examples of green transition investment in Finland and ensuring energy self-supply. Accelerating energy self-sufficiency, promoting digitalization and developing 6G technology are some of the many examples of wider Nordic solutions, cooperation and Nordic expertise. Moreover, Northern Finland's unique nature is something all Finns are proud of and value high, and it can provide an opportunity to increase sustainable tourism. Dear friends, Northern program is currently being drafted. Valmisteluryhmä, in Finnish, working group has already drafted a number of preliminary concrete measures. As a matter of fact, yesterday, the program advisory board, neuvottelukunta, and preparatory group had a meeting here in Oulu. The meeting was a success. I'm happy to say that the program preparation has truly shown an excellent example of Northern spirit. This is something new that I haven't experienced before. And I want to thank everyone taking part in this work for their excellent cooperation. and sharing important pan-regional solutions and insights about the opportunities and challenges that should be addressed in the program. Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Maria. Friends of the Arctic and the North, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martikainen. Now I would like to ask both the State Secretary and Mr. Martikainen to join me on stage, please, for a discussion. And while they make their way up here, I just want to mention that we will open the floor for questions from the audience. So please, if you are burning with the question, start noting. I will keep an eye on you, and towards the end of the session, we will open the floor, okay? Thank you. So, Maria, you beautifully spoke about the big picture and how it is all intertwined. And we heard it in both of your remarks that Arctic policy is not just international, it's also national. But which one comes first? National or international dimension?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would say it's a symbiosis of both, but of course, since from a national perspective, that comes first. But all countries are small if we're standing alone, right? No matter the size of the economy, no matter the size of the territory. So in order to have something to say, especially in the way the world looks today, we need friends, allies, we need to cooperate. So we need to unite our national thinking together with other like-minded countries, like in the Nordic, like in Europe, in the framework of the EU. And you know, as Norway is not a full member of the EU, we have the EEA agreement, has served us well for 30 years. And that is the core. So it's a combination of national meeting the international, but with the willingness to cooperate and seeing eye to eye with other countries like-minded.
Thank you. What about you, Mr. Martikainen? How do you see this? You spoke about security of supply issues, for example. Are those national issues alone, or do you see that as having international potential?
Definitely they are not alone national issues, they are also international issues, but I would like to add to this Maria's excellent answer about your question that it's also most likely also in a regional issue. We must remember always the regional level. It's a regional level, national level and international level, and all those three levels must do a good cooperation and collaboration, and they need to know, all those levels need to know what the other levels are in a kind of thinking and what are the aims and goals and maybe fears and things like that. So then we can create a good cooperation with all those three levels.
What about the international aspect? Because you've spoken a lot about the current process and especially the national aspect of it. But does international cooperation have a role in the Finnish Northern Strategy?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. And I kind of hoping that the role will be even more significant in the future, together with our close friends in here at the north.
Now, going to the Nordic collaboration, as I mentioned, it happens on so many levels. But where would you, if you were to rank, where do you see the greatest potential? We'll start with you, Madam Secretary.
I think the greatest potential is to further strengthen the national to local level and to have the national level backing the local and regional level even more. And that is important, not least because we see that some of the tools we will need if we are to build new industries across borders, they will need to be on a national level. But those living their lives in the local context, they know where to apply those tools. And that's so the cross connection of the local, regional, national, but especially the national backing the local is the most important. So it's impossible for me to rank it. I can only say what we need more of, and that is national backing.
And is the government willing to provide that backing?
Well, from the Norwegian side, yes, of course. And as I mentioned in my introductory remarks, our High North policy is very much national because it's about the security of the whole country, but also potential new prosperity. as we develop new industries, if it's in telecom sector, where, by the way, I'm very inspired by what is happening here in the city of Oulu with the 6G network. Friends, Europe is lagging behind in this very area. So if we can team up, scale up, and build on that potential, I mean, we can achieve a lot. And yes, from the Norwegian side, we see national interest in that, and the national level is supporting it.
What about from the Finnish perspective? Where do you see the greatest potential in increased Nordic collaboration?
Greatest potential. It's hard to point it out one potential, which is the most important potential. I would say that we would think the total as a whole, then we can get more. If we somehow pointed out that the sum is more important than the other, it might even affect that someone feels that we are not as important as someone else. So I would like to point it out that it's a whole. We need to tackle as a whole. And one more important point is that when we are talking about North and well-being of North and security policy and changed geopolitical situation, it's very important that we cannot separate this kind of well-being policy and industrial policy and business and security policy. They are very tightly connected together. The both pillars, security policy and this kind of well-being and industrial and business, they both must grow together so that they can back up each other.
Thank you. In preparatory discussions to this event, we've spoken with a lot of local and regional stakeholders. And while the Nordic region has been borderless since the 50s, and since we have traded seamlessly over centuries, we still hear reports on different challenges, either related to border obstacles or businesses operating across the region. So seen from a capital city perspective, do you see that we are equipped for an even closer border collaboration here in the north?
Well, I think the obvious answer to that question is not well enough equipped. No, we're not. We have too many border challenges, and by the way, in our government we have a minister dedicated to solving those issues. She is also the Minister of Development, Ms. Anne-Beate Tvinnereim, and the Nordic Cooperation Minister. And her main ambition is to remove as many of those border blockers, I would also kind of say, as possible, because as long as they're there, then it's good intentions will stop at the nearest border. We cannot afford to lose time having those blockers being there. So not well equipped, no, but this is very much at the top of the attention of our government right now.
What would you say, Harri?
I agree. Not well equipped at all, but it's always very important to remember that, for example, if there is some kind of cross-border obstacles or things like that, which are consequences or reasons by some law, for example, laws are made by people, and laws can be changed by people, so it's just up to us how to tackle those problems.
I've heard a comparison that each year we get rid of 5 to 10 different border obstacles, but at the same time we create 5 to 10 new ones. And a significant reason for that is how we implement EU legislation. A forward-looking politician, has actually proposed that when implementing that legislation, one should take the phone and call your Nordic colleagues just to see if those are aligned. Do you believe in this thought?
A neighbor check?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a very good idea. And, you know, the geopolitical shift, and my main portfolios are, in my opinion, the most exciting ones, working with the High North in Europe and green transition combined. You know, the EU, the speed, the scale, the velocity of policy development, and once again I mentioned to you that Norway is not a full member of EU. We have the EEA agreement, which gives us a place around the table, which eventually makes sure that we don't end up on the menu, which is very important in this polarized world we're living in. So with Finland and Sweden joining NATO, there are fewer gray zones in the cooperation and regional cooperation between the Nordic countries and the Nordic Baltics as well. Because previously some were members of NATO, but not EU. Some were members of EU, but not NATO. And right now it's really, well, I'm very, very direct here and honest about it. Norway is kind of the odd man out with only the EEA and not the EU and NATO membership. So that is why we're prioritizing to working even more forward-leaning, not to lag behind. And you know, the EEA agreement has an inbuilt backlog, so meaning that when EU policy is already rolled out, then we have the consideration to whether it should be implemented into the Norwegian law. So we have to work at least twice as hard to make sure that we are staying on the inside of the single market. So yes, definitely. A neighbor check with the Nordics is very good for us, but it's also important for us to kind of making sure that Norway is thought of, remembered, when our friends are meeting in EU contexts and we're not there, or we're in the hallway.
So I hear a secret, or not even a well-hidden message there. Now, before turning to the floor, I wanted to pick up on the challenge that was provided by Mayor Alatosava in his opening remarks about a joint industrial policy program for the Nordic regions, considering our regional strengths, multi-level governance, providing tools to solve development issues here in the north. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Martikainen?
Thank you, Anu. I would say that it was an excellent opening for the mayor. But I would like to a little bit be more, not precise, but a little bit fix the mayor's proposal that I would say that it's not the industrial policy program, it should be policy program, so that we look at the situation again as a whole, not just the industry or industrial, but as a whole.
So an Arctic policy for the Northern Nordics?
Not necessarily Arctic, I would say Northern policy is even better, something like that.
I could not agree more. I agree to everything you're saying, and it's. I welcome the initiative. I accept the challenge. I will take it back home to Oslo and discuss it with my relevant colleagues. But I have to agree with Harry what he's saying, because it's industry, and then we have defense security, yes, but then there's so much more, because we have to remember, if we and this is seen from the Norwegian perspective. If we look 20 years back, in 2005, the Stoltenberg government presented a High North strategy, laying out plans for development of our High North, pointing to the sea, pointing to the atmosphere and climate, pointing to development of petroleum sector, also pointing across the border to Russia. Well, many of those drivers have fallen away. We need to replace them with others. What the 2005 strategy lacked to point to was people, society. And it's not only about if they have a job to go to, but it's also about what they do after they finish the job. Do they have a cultural event they can go to or maybe participate in? Can they join sports? So we need to think holistically about it. Industry, definitely an important part of it, but it's about so much more, like Mr. Martikainen is saying.
And who should be in the driver's seat when we start drafting this Northern policy?
Well, of course, the people living in the Arctic.
Now I'd like to turn to our audience. I know there's a lot of competence here in the room, and I see first hand up there. We have volunteers with a microphone. Ambassador Vuorimäki, would you please raise your hand even higher so that the microphone finds its way to you. So please introduce yourself and state a brief question. And any other hands, let me know.
Thanks very much, Anu. I'm Petteri Vuorimäki, I'm Finland's Arctic ambassador. I think genuinely the State Secretary and the Director General had fantastic speeches, and Anu is always brilliant. We all know that. I don't have a question to the panelists, I have a remark to the panelists. As we all take forward the work to further strengthen the cooperation between three great friends and neighbors, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. As we are doing that, I think it's very, very important that we do not lose sight of the wider circumpolar Arctic picture. Because many of the challenges and opportunities that we face between our friends, of our three friends here, they could benefit from a wider circumpolar Arctic cooperation and collaboration. Let's not lose sight of the fact that that's how the rest of the world sees us three. They see us three as Arctic states. And in this world of ours, there are only 8 Arctic states. And the rest of the world, for several different reasons, is currently focused on the circumpolar Arctic region. So for heaven's sake, let's not lose that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria, would you like to comment?
Thank you so much for those remarks. I couldn't agree more. And that is precisely the reason to why we need to make sure that the Arctic Council, the very linchpin of the circumpolar cooperation, survives. And this has been the main priority of the Norwegian chairship, to make sure that we provide this unique organization, this living matter, with just the right amount of oxygen and this non-business as usual state where the activity had to be taken down to a bare minimum. Its pulse was very, very weak when Norway took over the chairship from Russia. But now it's working. And it is working well enough for us to say that right now it has survived, but we need to keep up the good work to making sure it survived, because no other organization can have the Arctic perspective in the same way as the Arctic Council can. But just as mentioned previously by everyone who has been on this stage, the multilateral system is under pressure. The post-Cold War architecture is under pressure. The Arctic Council is a child of that post-Cold War era. So making sure it survives is probably more challenging now than ever, but it's also more important now than ever. So thank you once again for your remarks.
Thank you. I have to say I struggle a little with the light, so next question. Are there hands up there? Please, in the back. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'll help you out. My name is Mary Sandell. I'm the Chief Content Officer of Arctic Today. I appreciate your conversation this morning, or this afternoon, particularly about the big picture and how we are becoming deglobalized and regions are becoming more important. And then you tied it back with what do you need from the national level? You need more backing. And I was hoping if you could perhaps give us an example or an anecdote, something specific about what can the nation level do better to support the region, like the Arctic region or the North region? What needs to be tweaked? What needs to be strengthened at that level?
What needs to be tweaked or strengthened?
You're at the very core of what's important here. What needs to be tweaked and strengthened? Well, we need to make sure that the toolbox we have available is fit for purpose for the new opportunities, for the new cooperation patterns. An example, trying to think of, well, I have one, and it's about sports and culture. For 4 weeks ago or something like that, I participated, well, I didn't participate myself, but I was there when it happened, Arctic Race of Norway, a bicycle race at the world top level. It's happening across municipalities, across borders in the Norwegian Arctic, and they have challenged the Norwegian government, me, since I was there, to help them with trying to reach the ambition of doing it as a cross-border race. And I said, well, of course, let's try. So that's a concrete example of how the national level can back the regional level, and this is a private initiative and it's a sports event. And it might seem so, it's so easy, it's just sports. Well, it's so much more. In order to make it happen, you need to have cooperation functioning on so many levels. And we are, although we like to think that we're very much alike in the Nordic, we are organized in quite a different way. So to make sure that a bicycle race can work across borders, well, it needs national involvement. And I'm very much prepared to helping them succeed with that. That's only one anecdotal example, maybe, but I will think of others as well. But friends, let's think together also. How can we update our toolboxes to be fit for purpose?
Thank you for an excellent, excellent question. It's very easy to take a next speech after Maria, because in a sports term, Maria is an excellent pitcher for the syöttää lapaanpo finish. So it's easy to pick up some points, but I would say that so that we can have a proper toolbox, as you say, we need to have a knowledge. What do we need to have there in the toolbox? We need to know in a national level and a regional level and a local level, what are those problems that need to be solved with certain tools and with are in the toolbox. And it's quite often it's hard if you are living in a capital region and you are working with the capital friends and capital colleagues, and it's hard to be in the heart of the pulse, in the pulse of the Nordic region and the regional and local level. It demands that you need to come here and have some experiences, discussions, concrete examples like bike race or something like that, so that we can create and make those tools in a capital and in a national level.
So perhaps that's also a challenge for us Northerners. We need to continue to educate you Southerners.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Are there any more questions? I think we have time for one or two. I see one hand over there and another hand over here. So let's start with the back and then the lady with the white shirt, please. And we'll take those together and group them.
Thank you. Päivi Ekdahl, Deputy County Governor from Regional Council of Lapland. Very good discussion, and actually part of my thoughts have been already said, but when you were talking about the border obstacles, that rose an issue to my mind that I wanted to share with you. We have, as you know for sure, that we have already border information offices in Lapland. We have one in Tornio, and then we have one in Norway, in Skipotten. And they work with the support of North Callot Council and also, of course, of the regions and the municipalities in the north. But this is a good example of activities that are vitally important. They are solving the day-to-day border obstacles. They get contacts thousands per year, and there is only not even a handful of people working there. So there is like 1 or 2 persons per office, and there is 2 offices. So it's not so many people. We have been talking about this several years already, I would say 10 or 15 years, that we need state support for maintaining these offices. Now, because the COVID period, it showed the importance of these offices for the whole countries of Sweden, Finland and Norway. So it can't be continuing situation that the municipalities and regions are keeping up this kind of services. So that's a good example of what kind of support we need from the national level, because we in the regions, we can be initiators, we can be active players in the cross-border cooperation, but we need the support from the national level.
Was that a question, or was
no,
that
it's not a question. It is maybe in that way a question that is there plans to keep up this kind of structures, because now we are afraid also on the Barents cooperation, because we have heard that that is something that the national level, at least in Finland, is giving up. So we are losing that kind of networks that have been built for decades already.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's like how are the national level reacting to this?
Thank you. We'll take the other question as well, and we'll group these two together before concluding. So there was the question. Very good. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Daria Mishina. I am PhD candidate at the University of Lapland. So thank you for inviting and for have this opportunity to meet decision makers. So me as a researcher is a great opportunity. So I think that my question is related to yours. So as I'm a person who was born and raised in the Arctic and now live in the Arctic, and now we see, as you mentioned, and we live in this like financial crisis, and we know and feel about this like economic opportunities. How do you see the nearest future of the Arctic development? Like, would the government face this challenge, like financial challenge and political challenge to develop Arctic region? And how do you see the Arctic? I mean, is the Arctic for northern governments, like for Finnish and for northern, is the Arctic is more about geopolitics, that we need this territory, or the Arctic is about industries, so we work there, or the Arctic is like people and we develop, but it costs a lot. So like, what's your vision on that? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a huge question, Daria. So, question about how do we see the Arctic, and also about plans to keep up the border obstacles solution providers for border obstacles. So, who'd like to go first?
Okay,
Please.
I can start. I'm not an expert on these border information office issues. I don't know exact details what the situation is, but we already talked about this issue yesterday in our meeting, and I kind of promised that I will try to find out what will be the future of those, and at least that's the one point that I have put it down in my notebook. So that's the kind of information we do need. That's the reason why we are here, so that we can get that kind of information. And then this other question, if I got it right, there was a little bit two kind of things in this question. I would say that we together, the people, we are the most important thing. Everything goes well or not goes so well, it's up to us. We will have to everything making. Whether is it the Nordic, or whether is it the northern part, whether is it the Finnish economic situation, or whatever it is, it's up to us. Each one of us needs to do more about that issue that we are eager to, and more work and more discussions and more cooperation, and we can make the Nordic area and the northern area and the Arctic area better place for the future generations. It's up to us.
Music to my ears. I agree. To the last question and the last part of the last question, well, it's about people, but politics is made by people. Laws are made by people. They can be changed by people, as my good colleague Harry here said perfectly. So from the Norwegian perspective, once again, our main goal of the High North policy is to make sure we have resilient societies made up of people who feel safe to live there, and that in turn makes it safe to live there. It's a thing that goes around, that have meaningful jobs to go to, whether it's in the health sector, education, research, rocket science, I don't know, telecom, you name it. In order to make sure we have thriving societies, which we need to once again, in a changing world, need to rethink how we cooperate across borders. And the Nordic countries must do even more together, yes. We need to, it's not only about allocating state finances. It's also that, of course, yes, and I am a politician from a Labour Party. My belief is that the private sector does very well with a little love from the state, especially if we can give it some direction, some strategy, point a direction, not pick and choose winners or technologies, but to create a framework which can make it predictable to build societies, to invest, and that in turn can increase stability. And reducing border obstacles and using local knowledge, and this is to the first question. Well, I cannot say anything very concrete on what we can do to kind of maintain the structure which is currently in place, but preserving that knowledge and listening to the people living, experiencing what those border obstacles mean. What they stand in the way in terms of developing businesses, in terms of traveling, communicating across borders. Well, those are obstacles to all of the goals and the targets we want to achieve. So I think what we should do really, have people in focus and politics aiming at people living good lives in the north. And then set some missions out there, some big goals, and then think, okay, what can we do together to make sure we reach those goals, because it will be good for me and for you and for everybody around here.
Thank you, Madam State Secretary. I picked up 2 words especially, love and direction. And I think those also go both ways when it comes to the development of the Arctic. Please join me in thanking both Mr. Martikainen and Madam State Secretary. And now, please enjoy some refreshments. The program will continue at 4:30. Okay, welcome back from the break. I hope you are refreshed and ready for another round of discussions. Now, we heard all about the new revival of Nordic cooperation from a policy perspective. But what does this then mean in the practical level, on the level of municipalities, regions, and businesses operating in here? What are the conditions and enablers that are needed for successful business development in the northern parts of the Nordics? And how can we ensure resilient societal development? And do we have the structures in place for that? Our next panel represents stakeholders who really have their boots on the ground, from regional, local, political levels, as well as from business communities. So I'm pleased to invite with me to the stage first Benjamin Fureli, who serves as the Deputy County Mayor of Troms and has been a member of the County Parliament since 2015. Benjamin, please.
Thank you.
Next is Mayor Carina Sammeli from Luleå in northern Sweden. During her period as mayor in Luleå, her focus has been creating sustainable growth, both in Luleå and in the region, and to facilitate the green transition of industry. Welcome, Madam Mayor. Then the chair of the Oulu City Board, Mirja Vehkaperä, who has a long career as a politician, both on a local, municipal, national, and European level. Representing business, we have the pleasure of having with us the Chief Operating Officer of Nordinova, which is one of Norway's best competence environments in the development of ideas from research and innovation. Eirik, welcome. And last but absolutely not least, Sabrina Suikki, International Business Manager at the Norrbotten Chamber of Commerce in Sweden. And I apologize, on the slide behind, Sabrina is lacking, but she's definitely here with us in person. So wonderful having you all here, and thank you for joining us. Now, welcome.
Thank you.
How has the changed geopolitical situation influenced international cooperation seen from your perspectives? And this is an open question for all of you. Perhaps we will start with you, Benjamin, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to come here. We have seen an increase in the importance of the collaboration between the three Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And we are working a lot of this on the regional level, and it's really important for our businesses, our civil societies, and our communities to develop coming forward. So we are working a lot of enhancing and improving the collaboration between the regions, and of course building resilient societies all over Troms and our region.
Carina.
Well, we definitely see it in every part of society, I would say. In northern Sweden, we have huge investments in green transition of the industry. When I talk about it in Sweden, I think that we are like so special because we are the only one where something happens. And then I talk to my colleagues in Tromsø or in Oulu, and then I realize that, well, there are actually a lot of things going up in the north, and the focus is on the north, not on Luleå. And well, that's, I only work with Luleå, but still, it means that I'm a part of something bigger. And we see it every day that we need to cooperate in new ways. At least in Sweden, we always try to work like north-south, and then they make the policies and everything from the south, because there where the majority of the people live, and then we sit up north and think like, is this applicable for us or not? And to cooperate over the border, that has been cute. It has been like nice to have, but it's not been need to have. And right now, with the geopolitical situation, it's turning quite fast into something need to have, because we realize that it's not nice to cooperate. We need to do this. Otherwise, we will not be able to have a transportation system. We will not be able to be resilience of supply of people making the work, working in schools or in industries and anything else, because we need to be able to cooperate in a whole different level, on an east-west level. And that's something quite new, at least in Swedish politics. So we see it every day. And it affects us every day.
Thank you. We'll get back to that need to collaborate more on East-West level, but Mirja.
Yes, the situation has changed dramatically, very, very short time because of the Russian side. But I think the situation about the security is on the table every day and every time when we are talking about education, our businesses, our green transition and energy issues. It's all around us that we have to take care of those security of supply things in our mind all the time, what we are doing. For example, how we are doing our city planning, how we are making effort to cross-border cooperation about transport connections and all things like that. It's all around us that this situation has changed very much.
So you're even busier than usually.
Yes.
What about from a business perspective? Sabrina, you represent the Norrbotten Chamber of Commerce. How do you see this change in your everyday work?
I think the eyes were on us due to the fact that we are part of the green global sustainable value chain. But due to the geopolitics, the national perspective have become even more important for us. And as the Madam State Secretary mentioned earlier, I think the connections between the national, regional and local level are important, and the geopolitical situation enables the eyes from the national side more on the Arctic development and also on the trade. In Sweden, we are 64% of the total export of goods in Sweden. So what is good for Norrbotten is also good for Sweden. And since Norway and Finland are the closest markets for us, of course, there's a lot of synergies. Together we are around 2 or 2.5 million people living in the Arctic Europe in northern parts. So I think together we are stronger.
Erik, what about from a North Norwegian perspective?
Yes, I would say that we have gained a lot more attention for what we are doing, actually. So it's not all bad, but the sudden change of the European security situation has given a lot of attention to how to support actually the communities, at least in Norwegian perspective. Sustaining the local communities and to have people living all over Norway is a security issue. And also the attention to how we create new jobs and make investments, I mean, in the whole of Norway, it's been becoming more and more important. Because some of the, let's say, defense strategy is to have the home or the national security, the National Guard in a way, in Norway. This is some local guard that will be activated or mobilized in a really short term. It's about 40,000, I think, people actually. So you could be mobilized in a really short term to support armed forces, for instance. So you have to have people all over Norway. And then you have to make industries, of course, also locally.
So people, workplaces, but we all know that there's a chronic lack of workforce, and we'll get back to that later on. But do you already see that there are measures being put in place to facilitate that increased workforce or increased amount of people?
I would like to see more, to put it frankly. Yeah, it's difficult actually to I don't think we discussed a little bit about support systems earlier, to have the right tools available. I think it's a bit tricky still. I would say that we are able to support it maybe in the bigger cities. I think they're doing quite well. Luleå, probably Oulu, Tromsø. But at least in smaller cities, it's really tricky. And at least in the Norwegian settings, we lack private investments. It's really, really difficult.
So speaking about support system, that brings us to the different mechanisms of regional cooperation. There's a myriad of different organizations working within the geographic sphere. Arctic Council, there used to be Barents Euro-Arctic Cooperation, the Nordic Council, CBSS, Council of Baltic Sea States. But now we've heard the news that the future of the Barents cooperation is maybe somewhat uncertain. How will this impact regional cooperation in the northern parts of the Nordics? Benjamin, please.
Well, I start to say it was really inspiring listening to both the State Secretary and the General Director talking about the importance of the Nordic cooperation. And I think one of the key success factors for the Barents cooperation, as we have experienced this, was the the meeting point of both the national and the regional level. And it was really valuable for us to both discuss our challenges in that perspective, and even also, thinking out the new solutions. So I don't know the future for the Barents cooperation, but I think that exactly that one, the national level and the regional level, working together on the cooperation between our three countries is a key factor for success coming forward. So I think that's really important that we keep, even though we have to change our ways.
Thank you. Mira, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, I want to raise that thought that this is the time that we really need cooperation, like you said, between each countries and multi-level governance with these countries and cooperation with cities and municipalities, regions, etc. But we have tools. Barents cooperation will disappear. I'm not very happy about that. But we have a lot of different kind of organizations. For example, Arctic Mayors Forum, it's definitely working very well between municipalities and cities. And then there is a Botnia-Arc cooperation, which is fine between Botnia Bay cities and municipalities. And also in university level, there is the Arctic 5 cooperation and different kind of these kind of organizations. But I want to underline that those organizations are nothing without people and connections between each others. We know each other.
We do.
and many of you who are here today, but we have to know much more better, all we politicians and people who are doing businesses and all those associations in the region, because people are doing the work, not the organizations.
Right. Carina.
Yes. And we definitely need more cooperation right now. And I don't really care what it looks like, but we are handling really difficult issues right now in Luleå. And every time we handle something difficult, it can be new infrastructure for transportation, it could be electricity transition, permissions for environmental changes or anything like that. Every time we solve the problem, it's when we put everyone in the same room. Talk together, talk about problems. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Okay, what can be a problem? And every time and I've been working with this for like 3.5 years full time right now, we solve the problem every time, but then you have to invite everyone to the table before you start thinking about what to do. And that is one of the big problems, I would say, that we don't really have the forum where everyone meets, because there are like national cooperation, and then we have, like me and Mirja, we know each other because we meet a lot, but we do not meet the governments at the same meeting as we meet the businesses. And then we have the regions, and they do something else, and also we have different countries with different regulations about what the municipality, region, and national level does. But we need to do more together, and I don't really care if you want to invent something new or use an existing structure, but we need to get together and do the real job. And we do not have time for waiting and having the good intentions. We actually need to sit down at the table right now and start working together.
Thank you. Now, Eirik, you've been in the game for a long time, working with business development also across the borders. Do you see any trends or any developments here?
Well, I think it's at least two different levels. As I said, the national level, and then you have the local level. For the national level, I think, of course, there will be collaboration within the defense, with Finland and Sweden joining NATO. I hope and expect that there will be a lot of collaboration within defense, and that will have a huge effect probably for many of the communities. But I also see it within energy. At the national level, we have to do something with the energy situation. I can only answer for the Norwegian perspective is that in 4 to 5 years, with all the plans of industrialization going on, we will have a shortage of energy. And we have a problem with energy supply. We don't have the power grid to support the energy supply in northern Norway as such. So this is a huge huge challenge for us and something that could be solved with cross-border collaboration, I think, at least to sustain and to balance the energy situation, I think. From the business perspective, I think very specific collaborations is very good. I'm happy to see that we have good collaborations with Business Oulu, for instance. We also had with Lula, where we do business-to-business collaboration, actually doing delegations, going to visit each other, to look for partners, to look for collaborations and so on, to support this kind of businesses around supporting businesses is really, really important to grow this new businesses, not industrial, let's say, establishments, because they are usually taken care of on a higher level, maybe in the county or the municipality, but also doing the new startups and supporting these new businesses.
But why do you need to facilitate the internationalization of businesses coming from Northern Norway?
Yeah, I think we are mainly, to be frank, we are looking north-south. I mean, when we work with new businesses, we are talking about the bigger markets. We talk about Central Europe, the US, maybe Asian markets. This is how we work with internationalization. This is how the state agency work with internationalization of businesses. But we don't see a lot of East-West. It has, in a way, to be shown as an opportunity. It has to be focused that there is a Nordic market, that there is room for collaboration. I think it's a good opportunity for the companies. I think it's a bit lost today, actually. We share a lot of the same values, policies. We share trust in each other. So I think it's really a business opportunity that's a bit lost today.
So it's a question of political will, in a way.
It is. It is also. I mean, we have to prioritize, of course, where we spend our time and money. So it is also a political issue.
You did mention something that was also very interesting, and that was the question of energy. Now, we also heard that Sweden is the front runner in terms of green industrial development in the region right now. But Sabrina, I wanted to turn to you. How do you think, or what's your take on, how will the Swedish ambitions and the development plans in terms of green industrialization, how will they play out across the border in northern parts of Finland and in Norway?
A little bit like Carina mentioned earlier, we often talk about the Arctic Europe and the northern parts of Sweden, Finland and Norway when we talk about the green sustainable transition, because the investments are happening in all of our three countries, and that means also that it creates common synergies and opportunities, but also challenges that we can solve together and also find synergies on the global market, so to say. We are very, very small in Norrbotten. We have 25% of the area in Sweden, but only 2.5% of the people, and that is the same amount as in Oulu region, the 250,000. So we are really small alone. So what comes to internationalization, global markets, we are much more attractive if we do things together with our businesses and cooperate and find ways to find these complementing synergies and also solutions for the challenges that we have. Otherwise, we're just doing the same things in 3 different countries.
Are you concerned of a potential lack of energy in the future?
Of course, the capacity building is an issue and very important for the northern part of Sweden. However, it's not just a question in northern part of Sweden, it is a question in the whole of Sweden. The capacity needs to be built where it's used. We are very glad that we have initiatives like Aurora Line that is built right now between Finland and Sweden in Tornedalen, that creates possibilities not just right now to export the energy from northern part of Sweden to Finland, but also the other way around. What comes to the calculations, it's not that we are calculating that we will get all the energy from Finland, so don't be afraid, we're not taking that. But I see it from the business perspective as a huge opportunity for Finland to build capacity faster than we do in Sweden, and also help the industries to evolve in Sweden, and the same way we can be enabling in the other way around when we come to the same timeline, so to say.
And why is Finland able to build faster?
I think it's the culture of decision making. I'm born and raised in Finland, but I have studied and worked in Sweden. So In Sweden, we have this culture of investigating and trying to find all the solutions before we decide and go forward, and that takes time. In Finland, you decide and go forward, and then you change the decision when you come there. Often the projects are done in the same timeline at the end, but we see right now what comes to the energy sector that the capacity is built faster on Finnish side, and also sometimes it's connected also on the regulations. For example, the municipalities in Finland have initiatives that it's positive for them to allow building, for example, wind parks. That is not the case on the Swedish side, so we can see that it's evolving faster on the Finnish side.
I'd like to turn to our politicians now. Okay, Karina, please.
Yeah, you know, when the European Union started cooperating, it was in an unsecure world after the Second World War, and you realized you had to control a few things to be able to maintain security, and then you wanted to control the coal and the steel. And we're in the same situation today. It's an unsecure world, and you need to control the important parts of it, and it's still the minerals and it's still the energy. And they are up in our area. They are up in the north of Sweden, they are up in the north of Finland and in Norway, and if we can control it and also create more value out of it in our areas, we will create a good future for the people living in this area at the same time. But it is about control, and we have great opportunities, and if we should be able to take care of them in the right way, we need to do it together. Otherwise, we will be too slow, and we will be competition instead of cooperating through this. And I think we will be much better off, but we are on a gold mine if we handle it in the right way.
Mirja.
Yes, there is so huge investments coming during the next 10 years in north part of Finland, Sweden and Norway, that we are facing the same problem as we have already mentioned. A lack of people, lack of labor, lack of energy and so on. But state security, Maria mentioned that we need the competition between these countries. But yeah, competition is good, but in those questions, like where we will get people to do that work, it's not good for us. We need people from abroad to do those main work in north part of Finland, Sweden and Norway, not competing with Sweden and Norway, that can they come to northern Finland to do the work. But we have to cooperate with those big problems what we are facing.
Benjamin, please.
Well, regarding the energy question, I'm a bit worried about the northern Norway situation, because we have in many years had a huge production of hydropower, which have served us well. But now we see in the future that we are lacking energy, and we have been dependent on power from northern Sweden in periods of the year. But now that I know the plans of Karina and Sabrina's businesses, we have to see that we also have to produce more in our region. So I think that all the regions have to have their own responsibility to increase the production and make sure that they are self-sufficient as far as possible, because that is also very important regarding to the security and preparedness of our regions.
I fully agree.
And that leads us to a very difficult question that we are at least debating highly in northern parts of Norway, which is coexistence. Because more energy means larger usage of land. And that, of course, then impacts traditional livelihoods such as reindeer herding. We also see an additional layer with the increased focus on the defense side of things, with exercises, infrastructure, logistics, and all of that. Whose needs should really be the ones that steer this development?
Well, that's an incredibly hard question to answer, to be honest. But we saw the map here earlier. We have huge areas in our three countries, northern parts of it. But still, we experience that there are a conflict of interest in using how we are using our areas. And in northern Norway, of course, we have important indigenous people, the Sami people, that we have to take care of and develop in the future as well. But at the same time, the society has huge needs for more power. And I think that we have to build up more wind power in our region if we are going to develop in the future. So I think we have to try and find a balance, but of course, it's very difficult.
Do you have any idea of what that balance looks like?
As I said, it's a hard question to answer, but I think that we need to, if we don't produce anymore, then I think that our region may be depopulated and we can't develop our industry. The green shift will not carry on in our part of the world, and the industry will move elsewhere. So I think it's we are totally dependent on finding that balance and make it successful.
First comment from Eirik and then Karina.
Yeah, incredibly difficult question, but I don't think we have a choice. I agree with Benjamin. It's the only choice is to not make that energy, and then we will partially die in a way, because we need to do these kind of investments. We need to build these industries. Otherwise, we'll be a national park in northern Norway in a few years, because most of the communities are not growing. They have a net loss of people each and every year, and there's a few cities growing, at least in northern Norway. So we have to accept. I also think that we have to build some strong cities around them, but then we also have to invest in infrastructure, and we have to invest in renewable energy. And of course, one of the answers in Norway is offshore wind. But then you have the conflicts with the fisheries and agriculture, so it's not an easy question there either. So,
Thank you. Karina and then Sabrina.
Well,
Mirja,
I usually say that the conflicts are local, and I'm elected from the people living in Luleå. They are actually the one who hired me, and if they are not pleased, I will not have this job in 2.5 years. So I'm elected to be able to be their voice. That's my job, to make sure that people are agreeing on what is going on. And sometimes I think that we put the question a little bit like you did it, what's the balance or what's the solution? And I think the question is wrongly asked, because the question should be, who was in the room when you decided this? Because there is no one else. I was in the German parliament talking about this, and they were like, oh, shouldn't we, the Sami group in this area should have this? And I'm like, you should not decide what the Sami group in this area need. They should be at the table when you talk about it. And what the people in the room agree upon, that's a good thing, because they are the one in the area. So that is actually, back to what I said earlier, the solution is to put everyone in the room before you decide what's going on, including the ones who do not agree, including the one who do not gain out of what is going on. We are right now rebuilding our harbor. People are affected, and they are upset about it's too loud where they live, where they have their house. But when I meet them, they are not stupid. They say like, well, I understand that it's easier to move us than the harbor, and this is a good thing. But I'm still worried about my summer house, and where should I go in the summer? And we need to talk to that, because usually we can solve their problems, but maybe not in the way that you can sit in an international arena and decide on, oh, we do it this way, that's the balance. It's a local issue that you have to involve the people who are affected.
Thank you. Sabrina.
I think what comes to balancing of the interests up in northern Sweden, we have so many different interests that are waved in, so it's difficult to say what is the most important one. However, I think the geopolitical situation and the NATO membership will influence also what comes to the east-western, connections and infrastructure and so on. So perhaps that might enable to make the decision in an easier way, even though the dialogue still is very important with the local people that are affected by the decisions. The other thing I wanted to comment what comes to the investments enabling, and also what comes to the industrial policy and national decisions, it's also important that they partly prioritize these questions and make policies, but also find the money for that. Because if we don't get the financing, then it's not possible to do all these changes. So we can see in Norrbotten, for example, solutions where private sector and businesses go in and finance part of them, what comes to, for example, railway. And I think we need to think outside the box, especially in Sweden when the decision making normally takes quite a long time. We need to think that it's not the old way of doing that will give the solution, it's the new way of meeting people and finding solutions and also working cross borders.
Thank you. Miriam, brief
Yeah, I
comment.
fully agree that local people should be in driver's seats and to have the respect, and also we have to have those support what we are doing, what we are investing, what we are planning, and have a good dialogue with them and have a thought what they are thinking and what is the needs. But still, I'm thinking that we have to be strong enough in north part of Finland, Sweden and Norway, that we have so many things going on here and so much opportunities that which would benefit to whole countries and whole Europe, that we have to raise those questions again and again in the national level more and more. The dialogue in a local level, it's absolutely important, but the local and regional and dialogue with national, it's now today it's necessary.
So people in Helsinki and Oslo can expect more nagging from us, in other words. Now I'd like to turn to an aspect that's definitely an enabler for business development and that has already been touched upon, which is that of infrastructure. First, to our business representatives, we know that there is a lot of need for infrastructure, but if you were to prioritize, what are the most immediate needs that should be covered?
Should I take that first? Yeah. I think multimodality is really important for us up north. We use all the different types of transports for our goods. 50% of the total tonnage in Sweden is transported on the railway between Luleå and Narvik. So we directly have a connection between Sweden and Norway, and Narvik is as much of a port for us in Norrbotten as Luleå is. That is an important one to develop. But of course the TEN-T infrastructure within the European Union, and especially the connections between Finland and Sweden, I think, and also Norway, to connecting us, not just talking about our national ones, but also finding the synergies and showing that. Because it's often easier to show our challenges in the Arctic for the European Union and get through our needs there than on national level. So that's a very good way of finding cooperation and finding ways to show the synergies. And I think that's how we should think. Also, for example, for the icebreakers that between Finland and Sweden, Finland has 9 icebreakers. We only have 5 in Sweden, and we just needed to fight for them actually in the beginning of this year in Luleå to keep them. So it's really important to find the synergies, and I think that's one concrete example where we could actually do more between Finland and Sweden.
Yeah, if I had to prioritize, I would say the energy situation. I mean the power grid and the energy situation, because renewable energy would be top of the list within 4 to 5 years. It is not just a problem of the new, let's say, industrialization and the new big projects going on. It's also an issue for the cornerstone companies around the country that are now going to shift from, let's say, fossil fuel to renewable energy. So they also have challenges with this. So it will affect a lot of the existing industry also.
Thank you.
And of course, the issue of workforce,
Right.
skilled employees.
I wanted to then ask, because we heard about the needs both on a regional and national level, but is that infrastructure planning on a regional and national level, is that synchronized?
I think it could be better. I think that now it's going on a project called the New North, financed by the Interreg Aurora, which are looking into how our transport corridors are today and how do we develop them for the future. And I think it's really important from our side that we strengthen the railway, for for example, from Narvik to Sweden, but also strengthen the road to the Kilpisjärvi and through the Finnish side. So we have to take a joint force in increasing and planning better for better infrastructure possibilities, but also mobilities for our people and businesses. For example, Tromsø now has 37 direct international flights during wintertime, but only one of them goes to our northern Nordic neighbors, Rovaniemi. All the others goes to southern Europe. Why don't we have a project that can take the mobility disadvantages down to increase the mobility throughout our region? And of course, using the opportunity of building a sustainable and green way of traveling in our region. We could be the leading flagship in our countries on developing electric flights or something like that.
So do you see that there is a need for a joint vision for transport infrastructure planning for the entire region?
Yes, and also I would say that the NATO entrance and of Sweden and Finland, and also the military, but also the civil defense needs, puts the whole infrastructure planning in a whole new situation. Because earlier we have the capital down in the south, and then we plan everything out of that. And right now there's a whole new way of looking at that you actually need the harbor of Narvik to make sure that things get into Luleå or to Finland if something happens. And we see what happens in Ukraine. Energy grids going down, transportation, railways going down. How are we resilient enough to make sure not only that the military can move in this terrain, but also that people can live here, get electricity, get fuel, get food, and everything you need in the worst case scenario. And we haven't thought of it in that way in Sweden. We thought that we were in a forever peace and we didn't need anything on the other side of the borders. And right now we have to start that work all over again. And I would say that we have started, but it's on a low level. Like the cooperation is starting now, but we are not like in the building time yet.
So infrastructure is also a question of resilience, in other words.
Of course.
Yeah. Mirja, please.
Yes, if I mention something about Oulu region, we have a big picture that what kind of connections we need better to have in the future. If we talk about railways between Finland and Sweden, if we talk about flights connections, we should have a better connection even to Helsinki, or between Oulu and Helsinki. And port is really important, the sea connection also. But first, what we like to see is that the Northern Agenda with our government will continue, and we will get finances, for example, to build the railway connection to Atlantic Ocean. We don't have money as Oulu city to build a new railway or the connection, but we need the cooperation with our states and to see that the connection to north, for example, to Atlantic Ocean is needed because of the security reason, for example.
And Sabrina, you brought up TEN-T earlier here, but do you think that there is enough of an understanding or a growing understanding at the European Union level regarding the infrastructure needs in the north?
Well, I actually think it's easier to talk to the European level than on the government level in Sweden. I mean, usually when we talk to commissioners now, they're like, don't point at us, point at your government. They are not prioritizing you. And that's one of my problems. And also that I'm not saying it to anyone because they're not even in the room. So, yeah.
Yes, and also we know that TEN-T infrastructure, what we are building, we have to pay it as well. As a national states. So we can talk with EU level, but it's just a talk.
I'm also part of the board at the North Sweden European Office. That is the joint venture for the 4 northern regions in Sweden, and we actually sit in the same place as the northern office, and earlier we were also together with the Finnish one. I think that is very true what Karina says, that it's often easier to talk about infrastructure for European Union representatives than our national ones, and often that is the way we get the financing for the infrastructure that is needed for us up north. Now we need to re-strengthen the east-western side that is not there yet, but I hope that we also can use financing from the European Union and also together find a way of working. I know also there is a group already that is looking into the infrastructure, how we can work more within the Arctic Europe together in these questions, where our CEO also is part of at the chamber. So it's very important to find the synergies and work together in those.
Now I'd like to move the discussion forward to a topic that was actually already briefly mentioned, namely that of workforce. We all know that we're losing people, but how severe challenge is this in your view, especially for business development?
Well, I comment from the Norwegian perspective, it's a huge problem. When you ask the businesses, one of the main concerns is actually how to recruit competent employees, I would say. And if you look at the situation in northern Norway, it's just a few cities actually growing. I see most municipalities are net loss of people every year. So you will be able to grow industries in the bigger cities, but mainly that's it. It's a huge challenge, and we are totally dependent on immigration, as is today. And I think also in the future we don't compete with Oulu or Luleå from the same people. We compete with New York or Miami or Stockholm or Oslo. It's a north-south perspective on this.
So if we are dependent on foreign workforce, how do we then go about attracting them? Because climate certainly isn't necessarily seen as a positive. Sabrina, please start.
I can do it. First of all, I think this is one of the things we need to cooperate with, because we are far up north and people think it's cold, and especially within Sweden, it's like, why should we get the same quality of life in southern Sweden? Why should we move up where it's cold and dark for a long time of the year? And we actually have easier to get people from Holland or other parts of Europe to move up because they think Sweden is good and they don't really care about northern or southern Sweden. But yeah, we need to cooperate about that because we see the challenges are the same. We are a lack of people, not competent people, we're lack of people. We don't have enough people. I could take everyone going out of high school and employing them in the municipality the coming 5 years and we will still not have enough people. So people need to move into this area. And that is about telling of a great life you can have up in the north. And that is a story I think that we should do together. And I also think that we should do more tourism and getting people to visit us so they can see that this is a great place to live. And that is also something we should market to the world as a united force, I would say.
And Sabrina, Benjamin and Mirja, but Sabrina will start with you.
I agree in the global context, we are more attractive together as the Arctic Europe area for the workforce, but also for businesses coming to our areas. We can see that our home market is internationalization more and more, so there are more businesses also coming up north. But in order to make that, we need to take away the trade barriers that we have. Even though we are quite alike in the Nordics, we still have trade barriers that are making it harder for the workforce to move freely between our countries or our businesses doing business with each other. And it's not just a question for the municipalities that are closest to the border. It's the regional question, because people are working from the northern part of Finland in Kiruna, Gällivare, and we have businesses going back and forth between the whole region. So we need to look at the trade barriers, and I think that is also a great opportunity for us to cooperate on the Arctic level to find this test bed. If not here, we're the best to try on how to make it work the best way possible, and show other parts of Europe how they could be working if they want to.
Thank you. Benjamin.
I agree, of course, with the perspectives that we need to attract more people and even keep the ones we have. I can't imagine why someone would ever think of moving away from our areas, because they're so beautiful. But I would like also to add one perspective, and that, at least for northern Norway's part, we also have a lot of people standing outside the labor market with not the right competence and such. And I think we have to do more to give them the opportunity as well, because we are lacking people, yes, but we do have a lot of people that are doing nothing, that are not educated, not working. In Troms, for example, we have a project called Men in Health, where we take the men standing outside the labor market, combined with a great need of more health personnel in our municipalities, and we give them a short introductory course so they can start working and get their formal education throughout working. So we are solving two problems, both getting more people inside the labor market and serving the lack of workforce. So I think we have to use the people we have in our regions better as well.
Mirja.
Yes, we need a lot of people to coming north part of Finland, Sweden, and Norway in the future. And how we can get them here, it's a question that we really have to have an answer, because we need them. But yes, I think education is something that will benefit to people to come free to educate yourself or your kids. It's something. Of course, those 4 seasons are excited first year, but after then, when you have seen the northern lights, midnight sun, and everything like that, it's like, what else? And then we will continue to think culture, sport, everything what is going on here in our society. But one thing it's what we are facing is the language. That if we need foreign people coming here, they has to have opportunity to use their own language more here, not just speaking Finnish. And it's like our private sector, like for example ICT sector, they use English a lot, but not in municipality or city level. And we are old-fashioned in this side that we have to keep focus on those people who will not or cannot speak Finnish, but they want to integrate in our city and they want to come here. So we have to be more open to those people.
Well, we heard from Mayor Alatosava that there are a number of immigrant workers that have come to Oulu just this past year. Do you have any strategies or best practices as to how you receive them and help them thrive?
We do. We have an international house where they can get the city services first. For example, where to get schools, where to put the children to take care, and where to if they have wives or men with them, how to get the work to other couple and so on. So we serve them first, and then we want them to integrate in our society as well.
So if we were to do a joint effort in recruiting foreign workforce, what would the sales pitch look like, Erik?
Arctic trainee.
Arctic trainee. Let's hear more.
I think it's I think it's branding. I mean, I think a lot of people are attracted to actually what we have to offer. A quality of life, nature, work-life balance. There's so many things that we actually have to offer that we don't tell. And we focus maybe on the things that we think are not attractive. But from the tourism side, at least in Northern Norway, we didn't sell darkness or snow or whatever for years. And when we turn the perspective to say that this is what we can experience, we have hordes of people coming in because this is what they want to see. They don't go to Northern Norway for the sun. I mean, you will get that in Spain or Italy or whatever. So we have to compete with what we have.
And of course, I think we need job opportunities as well, so it's attractive coming to us. Yeah. You can start a career here working in different, very interesting businesses like Eirik and Sabrina works with every day. So I think that's an important recruiting area as well. It's not just the nature and the Northern Lights, it's also opportunities to grow and make a good career.
We actually went all the regions and municipalities in Norrbotten to the Netherlands on a migration expo there. And what is working is actually when we do it together with the companies. Because when we are standing there selling our good nature, good schools, good quality of life, no one moves to that. They move to a job or an opportunity to start studying. And then they want the correct lifestyle as well. So that means that we need to travel together to find these people to get them in, because they want someone who will pay their rent when they move into our cities. So this needs to be done together, and we've seen that it works.
Sabrina and then Mirja.
I think it's a really good advice to do listen to the businesses and to the companies' needs and base the search of competencies for that. For example, Talga, that is working in Luleå and Vittangi near Kiruna, has been searching for competencies that we don't normally have up north, but they are also educating new ones. So we are building a competence that we actually didn't have earlier. HU Green Steel is, of course, playing a lot for the sustainable way of working and being part of the change, so to say, that attracts a lot of global talents, for example. But it's good to remember that we have the lowest numbers of unemployment in Norrbotten in Sweden, and that means that the global talents are the solutions, and we need to find a ways to market our Arctic areas so that they are attractive, and that perhaps you could also work in Finland, Sweden, or Norway, or change in between. We have companies that are saying that if the people stay 5 years, like hockey players, they are content, and they are even more content if they go to another company within the area and stay up north. So that's the goal, I think.
Thank you. Mirja?
Yeah, I just got the idea about Karina's speech that should we have together some kind of positive campaign. What is our situation and plus things in our constitutions and all this what we are doing here, and some kind of positive campaign together, maybe.
Yeah, sounds good.
And let's not forget strong universities. I mean, this is really, really, really important. In Northern Norway, I mean, the UiT, the Arctic University of Norway, is so important for all aspects of recruitment. And you get a lot of foreign students also to come in. I wish it was even more. But it's so important also for the businesses. So a lot of people are recruited directly from university.
Quick comment from Sabrina before turning to the floor.
I think we have also an opportunity with the universities due to the fact that we actually attract a lot of international students, but we are not as good of keeping them. So connecting the business community to the universities would be a good solution, and perhaps finding a way to work through the Arctic on that matter also.
Thank you. Now, as you can hear, we have a great amount of expertise here in the room. So I'm turning to you, and I thought I saw a hand back there. Ambassador Vuorimäki, we'll start off with you.
Thank you, Anu. I genuinely resisted temptation to take the floor again, but then I failed miserably. Great wisdoms by the panelists. Thank you very, very much. I think the biggest wisdom was a simple sentence. I think it was uttered by Mirja. The sentence was, "This is the time that we really need cooperation." That's the essence of everything that we're discussing here. That's the essence of everything that we should do. But cooperation is not about looking at your own shoes. Cooperation is neither about asking other people to look at your shoes. Cooperation is fundamentally about jointly looking forward and doing things together. That's cooperation. Several formats had been mentioned. The Norwegian State Secretary earlier referred to the Arctic Council. The Arctic Council is the preeminent format, and the Arctic community will remain indebted to the skills of the Norwegian chairship. I say that from personal experience. Media referred to the Arctic Mayors Forum. That's another key format, particularly even when the Barents Cooperation, as we know it, if that becomes discontinued, then Arctic Mayors Forum will become even more important format for cooperation between regions and municipalities. And I add two more. University of the Arctic Network, UArctic. I think I saw Otis Snellman here earlier today from University of Lapland, with hosts the UArctic. It brings together 150 plus universities in 20 plus countries around the world. If there's one thing that our world today needs, it's scientific cooperation. And that's where the UArctic is doing a fantastic job. And lastly, the shy gentleman to my right, Mats Fredriksen, is the Executive Secretary of the Arctic Economic Council. That is key. The business to business and business to government and business society cooperation. In actual fact, today they celebrate their 10th anniversary. So thank you, Mats, and thank you, Anu, for all your years in the Arctic Economic Council. These formats will help us to chart the way forward and to look together forward and beyond and forget our shoes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's take the gentleman on the left, sitting by the high chair. And did I see another question here?
Thank you. Max Morrigan from Nordian Energy, Sweden's guest here. So my question to the panel is, how can we create a new vision together, industry and political leaders, for the people here, building upon Karina's point that the great success she had with industry and her commune attracting migrants here. The reason is because I agree with also the panelists mentioned that, of course, local people, as I live here, we should be in the driver's seat. But in my opinion, if you put someone in the driver's seat and they're not excited about the destination, you tend not to go very far. And for the local people, I fear that in their mind, the destination is, in their mind, they're in the driver's seat driving a truck south, delivering goods, services from the north down south. Whereas in reality, what we're all working at is to show them that really they're in a passenger car with their families driving to a better future. And we can do this by creating the interlinking of the messages that is really a bit of lost. You know, this industry is decarbonizing, that region wants more power, but weave it together, because I see this as the opportunity, and it is real because a few panelists have touched on this. Sweden and Finland have joined NATO. Sweden ended 200 years of non-alignment. So this is the time when people's minds can be changed. And if we don't do that, then just bringing people to the table to get their opinion is pointless, because everyone comes with a fixed mindset. You might as well cast your vote from home. But unless we reshape the narrative, the vision, then we can have new dialogue and move forward in a new direction. So, sorry, that's my question on more cooperation. Thanks.
Who'd like to go first? Karina will
you
start
should
off.
go into politics, Mom.
Yeah. The local election is coming
Exactly. I'm a little bit worried. No, that is actually what is the point. I mean, we have big industries in Luleå. We always had them, or at least for the past 100 years, and we accept them because they are good for us. The people who live in our cities know that they are good for us. They create a society where you can live, where we can pay for schools and for healthcare and everything because people have a job. And that's basically how Swedish economy works. People have a job, they pay tax, and then we can have a welfare and school working. And when that works out, then we are working together. But it has to be the connection between what will be built and how it will affect people will have to be a good story. It has to be a vision of something better, and that's actually what politics is about, in my view. It's about driving towards a better future and seeing the obstacles in time to go around them, but you need to do it together with people. So that is like the story about what is going on, and as I see it, we have great opportunities up in the north, and we need to get people to understand that, because then we will be able to round the obstacles, because there are obstacles and they are quite big actually, and many of them in different directions, so you like turn sometimes because you have to. But we're still heading to something. But if we get to talk about what we're heading towards, then we will only see the obstacles, and then we'll be slowing down quite fast.
Sabrina, did you also want to comment?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Max. Good representation from the business committee in Norrbotten. I think I agree on the matter that we need to be visionary, we need to be innovative. We can't just do things as we have done before. This is an opportunity, and it's now, and we're here, and our company says the same thing that Mox is telling now, that if we're not doing it now, we won't be able to do it later, because we won't have the globe to live on. So the change is market-driven. It comes from the companies and businesses in northern Sweden, and that's why we also need to lift the perspective, look forward, and not to get entangled on the parts on the rear mirror, so to say. And that's a challenge for the politicians in Sweden and decision makers, that not to be looking things the way they used to be, just finding new ways of doing things, finding ways to make the processes faster to come forward.
Thank you. Mirja.
Yes, we as politicians, we need to take care of that people have work, the local people here, and they have city services, they have opportunities to live here and educate themselves and children as well. So it means somehow growth, to be on board what is going on and in the future. And so it's like is it good to have wind power mills in my or yours background? It's something like we have to discuss about, to have a local support to do those energy in and industry also so things in our regions. But it means a lot of discussion in a local, in a politician's level, and also people to people. But we have to take, as a politician, like I already said, that we have to promise to people that there is a future where they are living.
We have time for one or two questions from the audience. There's one over there, and then I see one over there at the end, Alexandra Middleton, and the lady in black.
Hi, thank you. I'm Maria-Helena Sivonen from the Finnish Environment Institute, Syke. Thank you very much. It's been very interesting to hear about your thoughts from the field as it is. I wonder, how do you think, because all of us in the room, we agree that this is important and nationally, internationally, globally important issues regarding, for instance, energy transition, but can you do something about, in your everyday work, to attract the other people who vote, those who don't live here, who don't have the immediate connection to the Arctic issues? Do you think about that in your daily life as well? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the other question as well by Alexandra at the same time and group those together.
Hello, Alexandra Middleton from Oulu Business School, University of Oulu. Thank you for bringing this idea of integrating international talent. And I would like to ask you about the role of universities, how we can be stronger in terms of retention of the international talent to the Nordic regions, because it seems like there is no joint strategy, and what is done on the national level, for instance, introducing the fees for degree programs really affects the intake of international students in the Nordic regions. So perhaps you have some idea how to tackle this challenge.
Thank you. So 2 questions. One about how to attract those that are not yet Arctic enthusiasts to discuss these topics, and then how to work with universities to retain our talents. Anyone who'd like to open? Benjamin, we'll start off with you.
Well, I would like to try and answer the question from here, and I think that it's a good question. We need to think more about that in our everyday work, I think. How do we sell this Northern Nordic story and maybe write it a little bit together? As we are sitting here right now, for example, we have businesses from Northern Finland and Northern Sweden in Tromsø, and Tromsø meeting through a project called the Team Nordic Arctic, discussing security issues and creating a greater understanding between our 3 countries and businesses on the opportunities and how to face them. So I think it's a good question, and related to what was asked later before here as well. How do we create this Northern Nordic story and get all the people and the societies on the board?
Thank you. Karina.
And I actually think of it quite the other way around. The Arctic policy is often written by national levels, and apart from Iceland, no government sits in the Arctic. So that means that the policies about the Arctic is not written by the people in the Arctic. So I'm not that worried about getting people outside the Arctic, worried about the Arctic. I'm getting my question is how we get people inside the Arctic in the room to create the policies about the Arctic. That's a bigger problem for me. And that's actually one of the reasons why Maja and Mirja is part of the Arctic Mayors Forum, because we see that, well, the local voices are not the part of the policy making in the Arctic. That's a national level and international cooperation without mostly without people from the Arctic. So I think that that's a bigger challenge. And when we get people in the Arctic involved in the process, then I'm happy to welcome the next rest of the world. But still, the biggest problem is to get the voices of the people living here, I would say.
Thank you. Mirja.
Yeah, I was thinking that all of my previous work, I have been some kind of Arctic or Nordic ambassador to showing that what is going on in north part of Finland, Sweden and Norway. I have been talking about, okay, reindeers, northern lights and so on. We don't have snow in the summer and so on, you know. But also the challenges and opportunities what we are facing. And how big is, for example, our ICT technology sector here in Oulu, which is massive. And people are like, okay, there is people in your city, and there is a lot of opportunities. Okay, they are a little bit interested about it, and then, like someone already mentioned, that they have to come here to feel and to see all those opportunities. And I think this is the bridge between that: is there interest or not with foreign people to come here.
Come here and see, but then we also hear that we're not necessarily that good at keeping them, especially the students in here. That was one of the questions. Would you like to address that?
Yeah, I can comment. It's difficult to answer for the university, but I think one of the things that could be done better is to collaborate with companies and industries, to have relevant masters, for instance, with the industry. If the students see that there are opportunities for interesting work after the studies, they are willing to stay. That's my impression. So, but if you don't see any possibilities except doing research, of course it's much easier to look for a job other places. So I think one of the things is to strengthen the collaboration between the universities and let's say local companies and local, so they actually are willing to stay in the community. Because if you have the possibility of an interesting job, you're quite willing to stay.
Thank you. Sabrina, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I could refer to my personal experience being from the southern part of Finland, moving to Luleå for the studies at the university, being the international student that tried to move away from there several times, but still ended up there. I think it's a lot of coming into contact with businesses, finding job opportunities, having these networking opportunities to create contacts between students and the companies. We had actually a räkkryssning. I don't know what's that in English, but for international students in Luleå from the chamber side, and talked about the possibilities that are rising with the transition that is happening. And a lot of them didn't actually know that this is happening here. So we shouldn't be in this bubble in the Arctic that we already know about it. We should be out there and telling and talking about it with the local communities, with the local companies, with the students, so that they know that these amazing opportunities are there.
Briefly, Eirik.
I will just briefly comment. For instance, we have an arrangement called Meet and Match, where we collaborate with the university and we invite masters and PhD students that are in the end of their studies, and we let them meet a lot of different companies that want to employ the competent people. And this is just a very easy thing to do. It's very interesting for both students and companies.
Thank you. Now we move ahead in the program, and we will get our two national decision makers back to the stage to reflect upon what they've heard. But before we do that, I'll give you each 20 seconds to provide me with your key request for them. And we'll start with you, Benjamin.
I think that the national level has to engage in the regional cooperation and national cooperation, and also finance a good structure for the future.
Thank you. Karina.
I'm saying that good intention is good, but now we need action.
Thank you. Mirja.
We will keep looking for opportunities to cooperate with national level and in cross-border cooperation in the future more and more.
Thank you. Sabrina.
I think joint Arctic strategy is very important between our countries, but also the cooperation that we actually do cross borders already up here.
Thank you. And Eirik.
Collaboration on energy and business-to-business collaboration.
Wonderful. Please join me in giving a big hand to this group of experts.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, as they exit the stage, I look forward to welcoming Madam State Secretary and Mr. Martikainen back to the stage for a little fireside chat. And we will have handheld microphones for you here. Welcome back. Great to have you here. I hope you've enjoyed some food for thought.
Thank you so much. And might I say, I think that this panel was brilliantly moderated. I've heard quite a lot of discussions on the future of the Arctic, but this one was very concrete, very engaging. I took a lot of notes, and I have three good colleagues with me from, more than that, of course. I also have people from the embassy. We have taken notes.
Wonderful.
But it also feels a little bit unfair to comment on that great discussion. But we will do our best, won't we, Harry?
Yes, thank you. How much do we have time?
Well, you're standing between the people and their dinner. So we have 17 minutes.
17 minutes, okay. Sorry, Maria, you don't have time. Do I start?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for the panelists. It was very, very interesting and educating and all that kind of good things. I counted that I have, before that 20 seconds points or 20 seconds issues, I already have 13 points. But I, in a way, make it only moved in the 3 points. So I would like to start with a very obvious and obvious wisdom that I heard many years ago, because that wisdom in a way suits for the agenda for today: collaboration, cooperation, benefits, advantages, and things like that. And the wisdom was that if you want to do cooperation or collaboration, you will need to have a capability to listen people, not just hear, but you will need to listen people. And I did that when I was watching the panel, so I tried to listen what you are saying for us, and those 13 points was the result of this listening process. So one of the points was that, which one was raised by Arctic ambassador, these universities and knowledge and things like that. And I would like to point out that we have been talking about a lot of infrastructure and investments, but we always have to keep in our minds that we will need to investments also between the ears, in our heads, because those investments are the investments which actually create productivity, innovations, and the future for the forthcoming generations. Just always we must keep in our minds that investing in the brains is as important as investment in the steel and the walls and the mines and things like that. That was the point one. The second point I would like to start with, it's a sad or black or something like that joke. I hope that you don't feel it too black, but a few months ago I have an opportunity to talk with the regional level director. I won't say what was the institution or authority, what it was, but he was telling me like a joke that, do you know, Harry, that when the baby is going to born here in 2025 or 2026, the baby will get 2 issues immediately. Do you know what those 2 issues are? You don't know, but I know. They are Finnish citizenships. It comes automatically. And the second point is that the baby will get a permanent work contract in a social and healthcare when he was or she was born. So the lack of people is the real issue, not just in the northern part of Finland. It is an issue also in the whole Finland, so that the baby will get the permanent contract for the social and healthcare and the Finnish citizenships, because we do not have a workforce for the social and healthcare, for example. And the third point is that mobility is also a security issue. Some of the panelists were talking about this mobility in very various points, but the mobility is a security issue. We used to have a line that Finland is an island, but Finland is not an island. We really need a corridor in the north to the Europe and above that, so that all the things that you were talking about, rails and mobility and flight connections and electrical flights and things like that, they are also in a security issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria, please.
That was beautifully summed up. Thank you so much. And try to build further on that. I would like to start with the point Max made, because I really love the analogy of driving towards something, and this is the time to rethink cooperation and collectively drive to a better future. I think that it really sums up a lot of it, and also what was said about the cross-border cooperation going from, this was said by Karina, going from nice to have to a need to have. It's a crucial precondition for existence, really. And in order to go forward with making cooperation work in the Nordic, I mean, once again, Karina's point, we need more cooperation, and it really doesn't matter what it looks like. We need to start working together. And I couldn't agree more. And I just have to say, so it is said, from the Norwegian side, we are very keen on seeing as much as possible of the Barents cooperation, the structure, the networks, the projects it helped build, continues to to be the building blocks of the future Northern Nordic cooperation. But I mean, it takes two to tango, or three in this case. Norway is ready to dance, but we need our friends and partners in Finland and Sweden to dance together with us. And we will just need to find the right groove, I guess, and the right structure. But to go to the 20-second sum up points. I tried to take notes as fast as I could, but Eirik, energy cooperation, cross-sectoral, I mean, it is so important. We definitely need that. And why do we need that? Well, we will build new industries, yes, but why do we do that? Well, because there is a climate crisis, and there is also a nature crisis. And Anu, you had a question of where are the trade-offs? There are obvious dilemmas. Well, first step, to acknowledge that we need to make some hard choices. And the reason to why we have a climate and nature crisis, well, because we have emitted too much CO2 and we have taken too much space. But and once again, Karina, I've written down a lot of things you said. We are sitting on a gold mine. And by taking control of the resources we have in the region and putting them to use, we can really develop the future we want. I think that was a very, very good point, and this must be the driver of the green transition, I think. Sabrina, joint Arctic strategies, yes. That was a good point, and that was I can say it might have been discussed earlier today. Media, more cross-border. I completely agree. Yes, definitely, and reducing obstacles along the way, a huge priority. Karina, we need action, and also you didn't put it like that, but I wrote it down like we need to put our money where our mouth is. Also, not only have ambitions, but also support it through finance in areas where it makes sense. And to Benjamin's point, a national level must be engaged together with regional and local. Couldn't agree more. And once again, without national level supporting the local and regional, we won't get very far, will we? So I could have gone on and on, but I would like to make one last point, and that is about what I've heard several of you say, making the Arctic more attractive and bringing new people in so they will become the future locals, right? What I forgot to tell you about when I was talking about this Arctic race of Norway, my good advisor Hans, who's sitting in the back over there, he told me, Maria, you forgot the main thing. And that is the fact that Arctic Race of Norway is televised to 189 countries. They are produced by the same production company as the Tour de France, and you can watch in real time from India or South Africa or Germany or wherever. You don't just watch like Fauske or Bodø or perhaps Oulu in the future. You watch our high north, our Arctic, and our nature, but also our people, our communities, and that's making it attractive. So we need to think outside of the box. How can we use sports events? How can we use university exchange programs to attract future locals? Because we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is the proper point to sum up today's discussions. We've heard that East and West, that is a question of political will. We've also heard that all the eyes are right now on us. It's the time when we really need cooperation. We've moved from nice to have to need to have. And with some love and direction, we will hopefully get there together with our national decision makers. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and this afternoon. I would just like to remind you once more that dinner is served at 7:30 here at the theater. So we all hope to see you here for networking and drinks and good food. And final reminder, it's Maja Tärning from Business Oulu here in the room. Please stand up. We still have a few available spots for the site visits, either to Nordic Tanks or to the port of Oulu tomorrow. So if you haven't signed up yet and would like to join, please reach out to Maya. That's it from me. Thank you again so much, both to our national decision makers, the previous panel, and of course, to everyone you there in the audience.
Thank you.
Kiitos.